All right. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, April 20, 2023. Got a typo up there again. Town Hall, or Town Council study session. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mike Aurelio.
Here.
Brian Blazak.
Present.
Wayne Pondinas.
Present.
Gerald Swets is absent. Michael Schilling.
Here.
Joe Wizawati.
Present.
And Beth Hernandez present.
All right, study session discussion items. First one is the 5-year plan. Senator Dalton prepared that for you.
Okay, thank you. In front of you tonight is the comprehensive 5-year plan, which we've titled Financial Review and Planning, for the purpose of treating this as a helpful guide as opposed to the end-all be-all decision maker for the town's procedures moving forward. So this report should be treated as a process and not necessarily the conclusion as to all decisions made moving forward. I will reiterate something that I've stated previously, maybe not in a public forum, but maybe individually to some of you, that the town, many of the things in the town are good and running very smoothly. And there are just a couple of things that we should definitely spend some time working on so we can get to a agreed upon objective as we look forward. And that's kind of the purpose of this 5-year outlook, 5-year projection, 5-year plan, whatever you want to call it. So I'm here as a resource for you to aid you in your decision making. As we dive in, I just want to quickly explain the reason behind preparing this report. So we've had several series of meetings with department heads, with the town manager, with the clerks, the clerk treasurer, to basically put together something that we think is very synced up and can be treated as a very useful tool as we look towards the 2024 budget planning process this summer and early fall, and just capital planning for all the departments and everything that we can expect to be needed over the next couple of years. So when looking into past, present, future financials, it's important to consider a number of things. One being, where were we? 2 being, where do we sit right now? And 3 being, where do we want to be in a couple of years? Again, I'm just kind of reiterating myself so we're all in the same understanding. So if we begin diving into this report, I will direct you to page number 1, which is a historical summary of major funds. Again, major funds from 2019 through 22. So you can see I've listed out just a couple in particular. General fund, I want to make a comment that the net change over the last 4 years has been a roughly $1 million net positive cash reserve. So you can see it running down that far right column. That's the change over time for the last 4 years. Again, I will direct you to TIF number 1, which is Fund 4445. We've lost roughly $2.5 million in the last 4 years and only had a couple thousand to spare at the end of 22. So that's just, keep that in the back of your head as we go through this.
Could that, I mean, was that as a result of the capital project that they did on the?
This is-
That is all shops.
This is all shops in 96th place, right?
So that was probably the biggest impact, why there was such a big,
Right. So
Reserve at that
there
point.
was an approved project and it did impact the TIF expenditures pretty severely.
Well, the bond put the money in there. They took the bond with the anticipation. That's where they spent the money to put the road in.
No, you had 2 different funds. You had your TIF 1 fund, which is what you're looking at here, and then there's you take your bond proceeds and those must go into a separate fund. So I don't know the new number, but it used to be Fund 407. That was your construction fund to fund your bond proceeds to fund the project, and then you had TIF 1 as well. So it's 2 different funds.
So are you
talking a
saying,
cash fund balance and a capital fund balance.
Correct.
Yeah.
so are you saying TIF number 1 has nothing to do with bond money? That is all money that's raised from the increment?
It's all money from taxes, that is correct.
Okay.
And the large expenditures there would be mostly related to services. and
Still
charges.
Shops 96.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you thought the bond fund number was what?
Used to be 407.
I don't have a fund report.
You, actually, it's probably, if you give me a second, I think you referenced it in your other report here.
I think you
Was that the
did.
construction fund?
Yeah.
It was the construction fund.
Construction fund,
Yeah.
That'd be 4417.
Yeah, that would make sense.
7.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep on moving through this. And I am not going to go through this entire report, by the way. It is roughly 50 pages, and I don't wanna subject you all to listening
Okay,
to that.
we
But
appreciate
I
that.
I will harp on a couple important
You've
comments.
been through it once, right?
Yes.
Once, twice.
So let's move on to the next
Three
page,
times.
page number 2. These are just some summary pages. Page number 2 is a cash flow projection detailing all of the major funds that I listed previously and taking 2020 through 22 actuals and then projecting out through 27. And so at first glance, everything looks pretty decent except for public safety. However, on the next page, you'll see what the actual annual net cash flow is, which is receipts over disbursements. And so you can see there's a lot of going in the red happening for several of these large funds.
And I know we talked about, shoring up a couple of those with, moving some stuff out of.
Right,
public
so I was
safety
going to
stuff.
get to
I'm
important.
sorry.
No, thanks for reminding me, Joe. I was going to get to an important point for specifically which funds? Local roads and streets, which is 2202. This fund is anticipated to lose close to $100,000 a year over the next 5 years. And so we are looking at some options, maybe shifting some of those expenses into cable TV franchise or CCD, just to kind of shift some of the expenses around, take the burden off of LRS, let it stabilize a little bit. And then the other fund that we are looking at closely would be public safety, the local income tax fund, which is projected to lose roughly $100,000 a year over the next 5 years too.
Why is that losing?
That's more.
Based on capital improvement needs that we'll get into here in a minute. Mostly capital improvement needs, also anticipated salary increases or inflationary increases to supplies, materials,
Is
services.
this both police and fire combined?
Yeah, yes. Okay. Let me know if I'm going too quick.
No.
All right, so the next few pages, page 4 through 9, I believe, detail the specific list of capital requests from each of the departments. So you can see a very specific breakdown for each department, starting with building, clerk treasurer, cumulative sewer, and then fire, parks, police, all the departments.
Joe, did you lock these more or less aside? Was it agreed that we would lock into, like I see here, 150 grand, sewer, treasurer, so much, total building, so much?
Where are you looking at? What
Those
page?
page
4?
4.
On page 4, what were we looking at specifically here? So.
Well, take a look at these, once that.
Yeah, so so for instance, like for cum sewer and stuff like that, we budget that annually.
No, I was just curious if it was
Yeah.
strictly a budget thing or if there were actual
Well,
numbers
this
to back
is
up.
basically our guide to kind of
Right.
navigate
No.
where we're budgeting
Yeah, I
stuff.
follow.
But to what Danny was saying with respect to some of the funds that are needing shoring up,
Well, we'll just shuffle.
we want to make sure that we're taking some of that burden off of those funds, so those funds can remain at a healthy fund level and not overextend those funds.
Right. 2023 numbers are linked in because that budget was approved last
Right.
year. So those numbers are solid. We also included the American Rescue Plan appropriations. You can see those under each of these departments.
And those are the actual numbers. Some of those monies have already been expended out, but that was what we anticipated when we did the prioritization of those projects for the 4.2.
And so of course, I'm not going to go through every single one of these lines. However, I do want to show you really quickly on page 10 is a summary of all this capital summarized by department, and then a summary on page 11 by fund. So this is actually more of a useful page to look at, just to see what amount is involved in each department and what amount's coming out of each fund. For streets, we are anticipating spending down the rest of the 2020 GO bonds. And so that line for 93rd Avenue falls under the street department for 2.7 million, 2.8 million roughly.
When does the ARPA money need to be spent by again?
26.
I was gonna
It needs
say
to be
25, 26, wasn't it?
It needs to be fully appropriated by the end of 24,
Right.
and then fully spent by the end of 26.
So whatever's not been appropriated by the end of this fiscal year, we'll have included in the budget for next fiscal year. So it's fully appropriated.
How much remains?
3.5 million?
3.6?
3.6 almost.
Yeah.
So we've appropriated roughly just over half.
No, not even.
No, it
How
was
much- how much was
4.2, wasn't it?
600?
Not much.
The total was what, 5 million?
No,
No,
4.2.
4.2,
Sorry, okay.
yeah.
And I think we got 3.6 left, so
3.6 left, and then we have some ARPA money from
So that's about,
kindly given to us by the county.
yeah.
That's
about
that's for water
86.
stuff.
Which we're gonna earmark that for the water.
Right, that's for water stuff.
Have we received that?
No,
Okay.
And that's a process too.
Is the process going on that?
It's a process.
no.
It's a process.
I know it's a process, but are we working on getting it done?
Yeah. It's just gonna be a process.
have we
A
received,
couple times. Randy's, we've spoken, and it's a process, like Joe said, but some decisions have to be made on the town's end before that process can even
Right.
be started.
That'll be at a very near future study session
Right,
to
yeah.
discuss.
Yeah, they were very generous. We want to make sure we put that money to work.
Yeah, because we want to make sure that we get that at least acquired this year, for sure.
Okay, I'll continue. All right. So on page 12, I want to show you kind of the foundation of this entire report, where, I know it looks cumbersome on page 12, but this is where all the nitty-gritty details come into play. So this is the general fund, where we're showing the last 3 years of actual receipts, disbursements, beginning balance, ending balance, and then projecting out through the next 5 years. So a couple of assumptions here, and all of the major funds that we've already looked at are detailed this way. A couple of assumptions that I've done across the board are generally a 3% increase to most receipts. So property taxes, I've assumed 3% year over year. And then for expenditures, I've assumed 3% year over year. So we get to a pretty balanced outlook when it comes to, say, look at end of 23, end of 27. We can see where the major variables are that make the changes. So one of the bigger variables here would be, one of the bigger variables that contribute to the cash flow deficits would relate to capital outlays, which are all linked to the prior tabs or the prior pages that we just read over. So you can see general fund, it's going to come in potentially roughly balanced at the end of this year. If you look at that net cash flow line, that's typically a really good indicator of, are we stable, are we balanced, are we losing money, do we look healthy, etc. And then one final point as we look at the structure of this page, the operating balance at the bottom in that gray row, that's really important for viewing the chart on the graph on the next page, which shows in green what our projected cash balances are. And then in yellow, a not arbitrary, but kind of a made up 35% target cash balance for that fund. And then a 15% minimum balance. And so you can see for general, we look pretty stable. We're above our our target balance, but you can also see a slight dip as we look through the next 5 years. And so just use that as a visual for you to keep in the back of your brain as we begin talking about 2024 budget later in a couple months. So again, this is how all of these funds are laid out. I want to direct you to maybe 2 or 3 more. Let's go to page 16, which is local roads and streets. So as I commented earlier, we're considering moving some expenses out of LRS and shifting it into cable TV or CCD. I did not do that in this projection. I'm showing full expense, projected revenue, and then what our ending cash balance might be. And so you can see quickly we're going to lose $80,000 to $100,000 a year if we continue with these spending trends that we're projecting into this fund. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then, of course, the visual on page 17 is quick and easy to point out. If we flip to page 18, this is public safety. You can see we'll quickly be in the red by the end of 2025, again, if we are spending the full projected amount of disbursements. Now, on both of these funds, or actually, sorry, in just public safety, I believe we did a salary increase, correct? Was it 5%
We did,
that was approved?
We did, yeah.
Okay, so that was what was in the budget, and so 2023, that's spot on, saying we spend the full 2023 budget. You're looking at ending balance of roughly $300,000. And so I'm continuing a 3% upward trend in those expenses as we move closer to 2027.
With
None.
the current inflation, how close are you playing to projections versus, let's say, your best guess, my best guess, our best guess?
That's a good question.
No, I
hard to
know
answer.
it's difficult. I've been down this road. But
So, in full transparency, it's probably higher than 3%.
Oh,
If we were
absolutely.
talking about this 2 years ago, 2023 would be more than 3%.
Oh, absolutely. We're running 6, 7, probably simply.
So on just basic supplies, basic materials, things
And the
like
question
that. Sure.
is, when's it gonna end? There lies another factor.
So 3% in our minds is pretty right in the middle.
Stable, yeah.
That needs to be addressed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have impact, that's for
That'll- As
everybody.
we get into the
Yeah, that
24
needs to be
budget, we're
addressed.
definitely gonna be talking about how we're gonna, move some money around to make that happen.
Yeah,
We're
'cause
not, we're not gonna let that happen.
it's gonna impact us all, not just us, the entire country.
Right. And then once we do that, then we can update our 5-year plan and our projections from there on, so.
And even as a preemptive recommendation, we can, the capital outlays in public safety are one of the hardest hitters to the deficit that we're running. And so that'd be one of the easiest places to find a different place to put that capital.
Right. Whether it's
When,
CCD
Fund-
or
finance that capital.
CATV, yeah.
When did you put the fire truck in, or did you?
Fire truck, let's see here.
That's not in public
That'd be
safety.
different.
Yeah.
That's cumulative.
Oh, it's,
Yeah,
I was
oh, the
looking at-
fire cume fund has
fire,
got
yes.
it?
yeah.
I was looking at the year, I think that's in 2026.
Any other points to highlight here, or?
For the sake of what Mr. Blazak mentioned earlier, let's flip to near the end to look at TIF number 1, just so we can see the trend
Page is that
here.
on?
41, page 41. So it actually looks pretty good if you can see the trend here. So right at the end of 22, we had $3,000. 2023, we're estimating 400,000, assuming there's no more appeals. Again,
But we do have some amount that's coming out of this next cycle from what we understood, right?
I've built in, yes, so your tax increment line up at the top there,
Okay.
at
It's
1.18
less
million.
than, yeah.
Yeah, that's less, the portion that's gonna come out.
Okay.
And I've also built in the temporary loan payback it's the $292,900
Oh,
that
to
we need to
CCD?
pay back to CCD before the end of the year.
And that's not taking into account the fund balance for that either, is it? In
For
here.
CCD?
In here,
This is, yep.
for CCD,
Confused.
for your fund balance projections in your CCD, that's 229, is, that repayment of that money is not included in there.
I think he's asking, did you add it back onto the
Right.
Into
CCD
CCD
side?
revenue. I can double check that.
And if you didn't, that's fine, because it's not there, it's, right now, it's kind of immaterial.
Okay, so this is the outlook for TIF number 1. Now, you see a big jump in the tax increment starting yet this year because the captured assessed value for the all the St. John TIFs put together went from 45 million to 55 million. So it jumped $10 million in assessed value between
Wow.
22 and
Good.
23.
That's
And
excellent.
that's all captured increment.
Right.
Times the tax rate, and that
Yeah,
gets you your income.
that's great.
Is it any one TIF or is it just all total?
That'd be the
combined?
combination.
Yeah,
Well, actually, I apologize.
Which one
this
had
is
the
just
predominant-
TIF 1.
You have it separated
This
out.
is just TIF 1, so you'll get 1.1 million this year. TIF 2, you'll get 90,000, and then TIF 2/3 will be, you can
2/3.
read that in here.
Interesting name.
So those are the main highlights I wanted to go through. And of course, I would recommend you all spend time reading through this and really looking at maybe picking out specific areas of concern, and I'm here to answer any questions you have if you want.
Tighten the purse strings.
That's right, on a couple of those funds, right?
Oh, for sure.
I know it's a lot to take in, so thank you for indulging me.
thanks for doing the work, Danny.
Also, if I may make one final comment, I would like to review this report maybe on a biannual basis, or some consistent basis where we can all get together, see what changed from this April 20th report, maybe meet again third quarter.
I
Third quarter
was gonna
after.
say, with the current economic and financial conditions, I think that's an excellent idea, because, we could have some, you have no idea what's gonna happen in the next 6 months to a year.
Right.
Could go south for all we know.
So the more we're talking, I believe the better it is for the needs of the town.
So what I'd ask, this is a public document. Is there, Jason or Joe, is there a way of getting this on our website or somewhere it's very easily accessible by citizens if they want to view this?
Sure.
I can. Once Daniel gives me the information, I can post it.
Should we wait? Is this like an approval?
Yeah,
process
Beth,
thing?
we typically approve the 5-year plan, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to make reductions to any of these, I wouldn't be putting, that's up to you. You can put it out as a draft form.
This is a
Right.
rough draft.
This is a
Yeah.
draft
So-
form.
But I think
Fair
we need-
enough, so
yeah.
something that's not complete, that's fine. So, well,
I would like to get it completed, only because, to Beth's point, obviously, we want to make sure that we get some of
What
those
did
funds
it-
corrected.
the decisions that are
Right.
being made are the real decisions. Okay, so I just ask, when we complete that there's some way of making
Yeah.
this public, residents have the right to know what we're doing.
I would recommend a official approval, and then I would be comfortable having this somewhere. Reminder, this report is never complete. You know that, I mean, it'll continue to change.
It's
month by
ongoing every
even.
month.
It could change, but once we have some sort of approved document, I would
Right,
feel
but I
comfortable.
would like, to Beth's point, I would like to take a few of those items that are hitting some of those,
First, you gotta make the changes that you're
and
gonna.
transfer those,
Yeah.
Yes.
so that way
That's the
we're
purpose
we're
of
not
this,
projecting, that's going off the cliff. Put
A
some of
great
those-
time to make it a public document would be, in my opinion, during budget season,
Right.
because that's where you're gonna fine tune 2024 a little bit further. So figure,
That said, do we have something similar to this that we did last year that we can make public then? That was done
believe it
about
We have
once
an
a
existing
season?
5-year plan. yeah.
Is that on there? Is that easily accessible
Yeah.
by?
It's,
It's-
we got,
I-
in fact, isn't it
I
online?
think it might already be online.
I believe it's on.
Maybe just double check to make
Yeah.
sure it's easy to find, so.
Yeah. I think we did, our current 5-year plan is online. We're getting this updated and kind of taking a fresh look at it. Here comes the rain, guys.
Oh, it's been coming. Haven't you heard it?
Sounds good, thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else, Dan?
That's all from me.
Any other questions for Dan?
Are the utilities on a 5-year plan?
They are not,
Okay,
but
that, you're working on it,
yes.
okay.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is the resolution number 2023-0426. It's the fire department and police department ARPA funds.
Yeah, so, we've got 2 requests from the fire department for, some ARPA funds. One's from the fire for $18,525 for ballistic vests. We'll have this on the resolution for the meeting next week. The other one is for the upfitting of the, police squad cars. There were 4, RTPs that were presented, from the, police department. And these are for the new squad outfits, lights, all that stuff. So, that total is $59,042.72. So we're gonna have that on the, agenda for the resolution for next week.
Any questions?
Where's that put us with the ARPA fund then?
I don't have an exact total on that for you, Wayne. I'll have
Okay.
that for you tomorrow.
All right,
But, I mean, you got 18,525 and 59,042.72. Those are the two
77,
totals.
yeah.
And you had 3.6 in here, so
Yeah,
whatever it was.
but I'll get that updated for you, because I know we're watching that.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, the next thing is the emergency operation plan.
All right, so the council had this presented in March. This was the large document that Chief Leduc sent out to the council on the 13th of March. We're prepared to move forward on the plan if it's the council's pleasure. You know, I'm asking if you guys have any changes, suggestions on that or whatnot, or if we're okay to move forward on that.
And that's the
Emergency action plan, yeah.
All right.
That's the 103-page book he sent out. Just an update, because I know we have an old one, but it's very old. So we're just updating it.
Okay, next is the ESBC service agreement.
Yeah, so this was the agreement that was presented by the chief, that this allows for the billing for the use of fire equipment, supplies for accidents, house fires. The attorneys reviewed that. He said that this is more of a policy matter for the council to address, so we're ready to move forward on it if you guys are. Unless you guys want to hold off or discuss it further.
Well, I think we get a little bit of discussion on this, because I'm not totally against it, but I also look at this as, we pay property taxes for these services to be provided. Now, when we're going out and providing the services, we're gonna be sending a bill to these people's insurance companies. I don't know, I think it needs to be a little bit, closer attention paid by the council here before we make a decision on this one, just because me being a taxpayer, I'm paying my taxes for you guys to provide these services. Now I'm calling you to utilize the service, and you're gonna bill my insurance for your fire truck being out there and cleaning up my car wreck, That's my opinion on it, but, I think everybody look at it, look over it, and see what their opinions are on it.
Do we want to hold off on this then for the council meeting is my question to the council? I mean, is that the kind of consensus?
Yeah, so you'd like to have the chief come and explain this further.
He was here last month.
Yeah.
explaining.
Yeah, it was.
I see it as a additional bill on top of something I'm already thinking I'm paying for, because I do pay property taxes, and your property taxes are to pay for the services to be out there now.
I mean, I understand his point. He's looking for, some alternate revenue sources. But, that's, I see what you're saying, and I'm not.
That's just my opinion on it.
There could be accidents
my
that they
2
clean
cents.
up, that it's a truck going through, a tractor trailer.
That's correct.
With a big spill, and they're not a resident of St. John.
Right, and we don't have the ability to.
Yeah,
bill them
but
for
at that
this.
point, you call the hazmat team in and they build a spiller. Or hazmat
But
team
our
already.
fire department would be the one to start that cleanup or put out that fire or whatever they had to do.
Well, I think you bring up a good point. Is there a difference in fee structure for a resident versus a non-resident? And is that legal to do that?
I don't know if it's legal to do that, but I would say that it would be it'd be kind of challenging to do that. But, because how do you differentiate, well, I'm a resident, I'm a not resident, and, is it $500, is it $1,000? I don't know how you would.
Well, they do that with park fees and stuff, if you're a resident, the rentals. I mean,
This is just what whether they live in town or not. They give us a.
Yeah, exactly, driver's license.
Who is doing the billing?
For,
Like, who's billing the
This
insurance?
company will
the
do it.
Oh, so we're
ESPC. Third
you
party,
would be
yes.
contracting a
say
third
maybe
party.
some-
They're gonna send us a check for what they collect.
Will we
Okay.
ask the chief?
And I'm
to
sure
look
they
into that?
take an administrative cost.
Gotcha.
If there's a way of reducing the cost of residents and not unfairly raising it to non-residents, but if that's the way other towns are doing it, maybe we can look into something like that.
well, he did say that when he was here at his presentation, that Crown Point's currently doing that. In his memo that he provided here, in 2021, they collected $55,315 and change. In 2022, $46,000. So it is a revenue stream.
It's
It is a revenue stream, but eventually the
To cover their
person
costs.
pays for it because the insurance company's just not gonna keep writing these checks out. They'll raise the person's insurance rates.
There's no free lunch, Mike, right?
I know there's no free lunch. But pretty soon I won't have any money for lunch. All right, any other questions on
So-
the agreement?
So just, are we holding off on this, guys? Is that where we're at? We're gonna hold off and get more.
Well, could you ask the chief for those questions? I would love to know if it's legal and if it's possible and, what is.
Oh, it's legal.
What our
We're doing
neighbors
it.
do.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
the chair.
Then this will not be on the agenda for next week.
Right, and if like they're from Illinois, we can charge them triple or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
Wow.
I don't know if we do that, but yeah.
I'm joking.
At least don't advertise it.
All right, any other questions? All right, move on. The Live Safe Agreement.
So, yeah, this was presented to the town council a little while back. Wants to take action on this if we can next week. This allows the town to access their portal for fire inspections. If a business is required to have a fire inspection, the inspection company provides that information to Live. They provide it to the town at no cost. Something also that could be built into this is the backflow as well, where we get that information. So it's just something, it doesn't cost us anything, but this is kind of what they wanted to go to.
Well, we currently have a backflow.
they have a company that's doing it for the houses.
Right. They're doing that, but the inspection reports would be available, and I think it would, for the town. So, and it doesn't cost us anything. So if that's something we wanted to do, we could. It's not something we have to do. That was just one of the things that they mentioned.
But part of this
They're
agreement
not
is where
doing the
they're doing their,
backflow. They report to Live, and then Live would provide us that information. And it doesn't cost anything, so. So there's an agreement that would be on the agenda for next week if that's what the council wishes to do.
and that's for fire inspections?
Yeah.
So, who's doing the fire inspection?
Whoever's contracted to do those inspections. We're not doing them. It's not our thing. So
What are
if
they
they-
doing fire inspections on?
Like if, for instance, someone comes in, they want a restaurant, and they want to do their Ansel system, they've got to have it inspected, so they have to have an inspector come in, do the inspection. They report that information, and it goes to Live.
Why wouldn't is the fire department equipped to do that, or
I don't think
Trained to do that?
legislatively right now they can. So,
do they have to
and it's
go
contracted.
to a school for that because you have your fire system, you
Right.
want to make sure that's that's working.
All of that's contracted out. So in other words, whoever they have to go and do their inspections for the system has to certify it. They provide that information.
They're providing the information that they
Correct.
went and did it to the
Okay,
restaurant, to the
yeah,
town.
Yeah,
I agree with that
yeah,
one.
that makes sense.
Okay. What else we got here? Okay. Move that one. So the opioid fund for the fire department. So the fire chief was seeking to purchase some 2 Stryker ambulance cots utilizing these funds. So we currently do not have the full complement of that money. We have probably, well, no, I know as of March 31st, we had 24,574 and 57 in the restricted fund. The cost of the cots is about 60,000. In the remaining fund, after we get our full complement, we'll have about 59,000 left over in that fund, roughly. But what he's looking to do is when we do get that enough money in that fund, is to utilize that for the new Stryker cots. So there's 2 Stryker cots, it's 60,000 for the ambulance. So those are the ones that lift up automatically and do all of that stuff. So
Okay.
we're needing 2 of those right now. So he's trying to
What are
find
they
an
gonna pay
alternate
for
source.
it now?
What's that?
They're gonna pay for it out of what now?
Right now, there was nothing discussed about that. This was one of the options. So when we do get the money, they wanted to move forward on it. We're
Okay.
just kind of seeing,
They're $30,000 a piece?
yeah,
What do they do besides lift up?
they lift you up and don't kill your firefighters.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, they're pretty sophisticated now. You put them in there and it pulls them in and pulls them out. So you're not yanking on them and pushing them in and out. It's pretty nice. If you ever seen them. Yeah. So this isn't for any decision that needs to be made. It's just for an FYI thing. But you know, we've had talks with Westland on whether or not that could be utilized for the restricted fund, and that's what we were having conversations about. So when we're ready to move forward on that, that'll be obviously coming back to the council.
Thank you.
All right, next, ordinance number 1794, authorizing promotion of town business.
So this is presented, it allows for the payment of expenses that are in service of the general welfare of the town's image and betterment of the organization. So this ordinance is recommended so that the town can expend funds for such things as retirement plaques for retirees, staff recognition, et cetera. The town of Munster just recently passed this exact ordinance to comply with the SBOA requirements. And that's for the things like the coins and stuff like that, so that the firefighters want. Right now, we're not able to buy stuff like that because it's considered a gift or something to the employee. So this kind of cleans all that up for the SBOA and kind of brings everything into compliance.
Any questions on it, Beth?
I would just change Munster to St. John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Oh, it has the number 6, right? Yeah, it says Munster there.
Yeah. Well, we copy paste. I know the guy that wrote it.
I'm with Beth on that for sure.
Yeah.
He wrote it once
Yeah,
and-
so we will get that corrected. And that'll be before the council for next week.
So that makes sense.
All right, anything else on that one?
None on that.
Next, you have in front of you the acceptance of the performance security for Parish Woods.
Yeah, so this was presented for next week with a favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission from their March 1st meeting. The amount of the surety is $216,965.98.
And we're gonna be receipting that in,
I think that's just a letter of credit, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe
or
it
is it a
is.
letter of credit?
Yeah. Yeah, there's an irrevocable letter of
Letter
credit.
of credit.
Letter of credit.
Just for performance, that's all it's for.
Okay.
Next would be ordinance 1795, that's the amendment to the subdivision control ordinance.
Yeah, so this is also presented with a favorable recommendation by the Plan Commission from their meeting on March 1st. They had the public hearings on that were required. This establishes a sidewalk, curb, and gutter installation fund and amends the curb and gutter design standards for the town.
And as an amendment to the conversation, the Planning Commission and the BZA both are pressing very hard for every development coming through is going to be putting in curbs and sidewalks, and they're going to, of course, redesign them.
On both
And-
sides of the road, right?
Well, in some cases, if it's possible, yes. However,
Standard is both sides.
only on the side they're building on, Mike. That's all they're required to do. But you also have a fund that's going to be more or less activated, that curbs and gutters, if they have a close proximity to, say, a major thoroughfare like Route 41, and the sidewalks are too close to such a higher speed road, and therefore it's not advisable because the sidewalks are too close to the road, then they will be requested to put in 90% of what it would cost to put curbs and gutters in. And in that fund, the money will remain for curbs and gutter projects on other areas where they were missed years ago. And nobody, the developers at that time weren't required to pay for it. So that's gonna be put into a fund, and that way they'll be able to say, well, we got a little extra money, let's put curbs and gutters in this portion that's missing that wasn't done in the past. So it's a pretty solid plan.
Can we please add a fund number to the ordinance?
You can,
I have no problem with that. If you want to give us a number, we'll go ahead and put
Yeah,
that in.
I think it would make sense to
It
have
would
the fund
absolutely make
number
sense, yeah.
in the ordinance.
yeah, because it's gonna start being, they're pushing people,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, Adam Decker drew up the ordinance, so,
Okay.
yeah, we'll definitely add the number, just, if you would shoot that over to me.
All right. Any other thing on that?
That was the long of the short of it.
All right. Moving around for the use variance, this is for a medical office at 9495 Coleman Street.
Right, so this received a favorable recommendation from the BZA at their March 20th meeting. This would allow a medical office at 9495 Kyleman. We're not, however, ready to present this to the council for approval until your May meeting. Just making you aware of that, that's coming up.
Do medical offices pay property taxes? Are they exempt for property taxes?
Yeah, because they're not
Not
technically-
not-for-profit.
They're not
Right,
not-for-profit.
right.
So they pay property taxes.
Yeah, the only ones that would be exempt are like hospitals, ERs, stuff like that.
churches.
Churches, obviously, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, next, road repairs for Joliet Street.
So we've got two quotes, gentlemen, for the road repairs for Joliet. Joliet there's three areas. And I put a little map just so you guys understand what we're looking at repairing on those. One is by the roundabout, one's by Tulip, and the other one is by Garden Way. So at those intersections, the road base surface areas have deteriorated. So we're looking at getting those repaired. So we have two quotes. One was from Sutton Asphalt from here in St. John. The other one was from Holland Asphalt. The one that was quoted was at 43.8. The other one was at 46.8. You have copies of those today. So we would like to just do a motion on this to do that. We would have to. I want to get with Beth and figure out exactly where we're funding that out of, so we can do a proper RTP for that as well.
That'll be ready for next week's meeting.
Yeah.
That
we'll
would be
ready.
great to get that fixed immediately, yeah, as soon as possible. It's dangerous.
Any questions on that? Anybody got any miscellaneous items they
Just,
have?
I have a couple, or you want to go first, Beth?
I don't think I have anything.
Okay, just with respect to the RTPs, the clerk's office sent out the RTPs to you guys tonight. If any of you have any questions about those, please let me know. Next week is our Student Government Day, so any reports that you plan on giving, please get those to me tomorrow in Word document if you would, or if you don't, just get them to me and I'll have her type them up. We just want to make sure that we have those. It's going to kind of be a scripted event, so for the record, you guys will be voting officially with them because you have to vote. You're the elected officials. They're just the student governments, students that are going to be there. When they're giving their report, if you would just kind of give them a little guidance, sometimes they might get stuck on something. So they're going to have their reports when they come in, so they'll be able to practice before the meeting, but they're going to be nervous, obviously, so just help them out if you would.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Great idea.
That's all I have this evening.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.